You know, the mind that we've had some guests on the show before, and we started talking about the All the Smoke tournament, man. But this weekend coming up, we're finally back. We're back with basketball in Toronto. Legal or not illegal, I don't really care. But we're back with basketball in Toronto. And we got the Pink City Classic, the 5th annual Pink City Classic, Debo. Talk to us about what you feel about this tournament coming up, man.
Hey, same thing I said last time. Whoever wants to smoke is going to get it. My kids are ready to go. Super excited to have basketball back in the GTA. Things are starting to come back around.
And honestly, if we couldn't have started off the Pink City weekend any better than a legend, a Canadian legend, a Canadian sports legend in particular, somebody that has been near and dear to me because he's really been an anchor of a comedy within sports, Cabbie Richards. How you doing, man?
I'm wonderful. Thank you so much for the invitation. I look forward to annoying your listeners for the next 30, 45 minutes or so.
Hey, our listeners are privileged and honored to hear from you, so that's not going to be annoying at all, man.
I'm not sure that's true. We'll let the audience decide, and they'll let you know. Like, yeah, we just had to skip that episode.
There we go. I think differently, but Devontae, take us away, man.
Cabbie, we love to start the show off with a game called Overrated Underrated. For you,
I love that.
I'm going to give you a bunch of NBA players. You can put your 2 cents in there, or you can just tell me if they're overrated or underrated.
Oh my gosh. Wow, that's really putting your guest like on the hot seat, because
right on the hot seat. That's how
this is going to exist forever. So like if I say that, if I say that Blake Griffin is overrated, Blake Griffin may hear this podcast one day driving in his car in California on the PCH. He'd be like, "Oh, I'm overrated, mother bleeper." And then I'll never get to, like, if I run into Blake Griffin at a taco spot or a taco truck in Koreatown in LA, then I'm gonna get some side eye, or I may be like, "Hey Blake, what's up? This is Cabbie. I'm from Toronto, blah blah blah," and he'd be like, "Oh, I know," and they like. He just might absolutely just crush my entire vibe. I gotta be careful. I might. Oh my gosh. Okay, go ahead with the game. But I'm already nervous.
Like Blake. And if Blake has a problem, tell him to come to me first, and we can solve that problem. All right. Sure. But don't worry, we're not getting Blake today. Let's throw it back a little bit first with Allen Iverson.
Properly rated. I think Iverson has been getting his flowers the last 5 or 6 years, and there was a moment, I want to say in 2018 or 2019, where Iverson was like, maybe it was around Kobe's. No, it was before Kobe's passing. But he was like hugging dudes like Melo and D Wade for a long time, just to tell them how much he cares about them and loves them. And like AI, such an icon, and he lived such a rock and roll lifestyle while he was playing and enjoying his life and enjoying his millions. So some people were like, we're not sure how long we're going to have him, so we need to give him his flowers while he's here. Mm-hmm. And I know you said you guys have a tournament, basketball tournament. Was it All the Smoke, the basketball tournament? Or Get the
Pink
Smoke?
City Classic. Pink City Classic.
Oh, sorry. Pink City Classic. Sorry. But you referenced Getting the Smoke. And on the All the Smoke podcast with Matt Barnes and Stack Jack, Steven Jackson, they like to give flowers to their guests. And Iverson, I believe in the basketball world, basketball Twitter, he's been getting his flowers. I think Iverson is properly rated. I know I'm still going right in the middle of your, it's supposed to be binary. It's either one or the other, and I'm kind of slicing it in the middle. But I'm going to do that because I think that
Allen Iverson will give that exception.
Okay.
Next person, Joe Johnson.
Oh, wow. I haven't thought about Joe Johnson since he played for Miami in 2016. Oh no, he did play for Miami, didn't he? 2016.
He had a segment. Mm-hmm.
And I think in one of the games against us in the second round, he had like one game where he had like 5 or 6 3-pointers with like old Joe Johnson. Mm-hmm. Wow, that is a great question. I don't have a sense of how Joe Johnson.
You know what? If you had to lock in one answer, what would you? What would you go with?
I don't know off the top of my head how many All NBA teams he's made, and that's my first delineation of a player's talent. When we're measuring greatness, I always go like, how many All NBA teams did this player make? And that's I don't count rings. Rings are at the very end. It's like All NBA, I think for sure is a great metric. And then like, were you in MVP voting? And then like, how many All-Star games did you like? Were you an All-Star starter?
Okay.
You know, and then okay, so Joe Johnson, boy, he probably made the All-NBA team maybe 2 or 3 times.
I'm gonna lock in with 2.
Phoenix, Atlanta. Well, Atlanta in that Mike Budenholzer era. I know this is supposed to be a rapid fire section,
That's
but
okay.
I'm just kind of thinking it through. And when they won 60 games, I think once or twice with, you know, when he played with Al Horford and Jeff Teague, and I'm missing the 4th. And they'd always meet up against Braun, either in the second round or the Eastern Conference Finals. He probably made the All-NBA team.
Lou Will, Josh Smith, I think.
Josh Smith, yeah. I don't think Joe Johnson is – I don't know how rated he is. So I'm not going to say he's underrated, and I'm not going to say he's overrated, because who's out here caping for Joe Johnson? Nobody. I mean, maybe some people in his family or extended family, or maybe some diehard Phoenix Suns fans or Atlanta Hawks fans. I'm going to say, I'm so sorry. I'm going to say again, he's properly rated.
Okay. Now, with your definition of your logic, I'm going to switch it up here. I want to ask you about Trey Young in this playoff run. Is he here now, or is this just a playoff run? Do we see this in Trey?
Ice Trey is here now. He has announced his arrival on the biggest, almost the biggest stage in the NBA. Biggest stage, obviously, being the NBA Finals. Second biggest stage would be like the All-Star Game, because that's beamed into 215 countries as well, and it's such a major event. And if he wins like All-Star MVP one of these years, then it will like, I know it's an exhibition, but like every country, most countries in the world are dialed into the NBA All-Star Game because it's so huge. Or like a Christmas Day game. Okay, so Ice Trey. Ice Trey is properly to underrated. He is, and I shouldn't make this comparison. I'm going to say that he has Steph Curry's DNA. I'm not going to say he's Steph Curry 2.0, but he's got some of that DNA. He is fearless. Like, to go into, and I kind of dislike that Tom Thibodeau earned Coach of the Year, because I really think it should have been Monty Williams. Like, because both Phoenix and New York were lottery teams in 2020, but now Phoenix is in the finals, and Phoenix is in the Western Conference, and they had the number 2 seed. So, but for Trey Young to go into Madison Square Garden, to be bowing at center court, you know, and like to dust the Knicks in 5, and then to win 3, to help his team win 3 playoff games in Philadelphia, where Philadelphia is one of the second best home team in the NBA in the regular season.
Ridiculous.
Remarkable. And, you know, had he not stepped on the ref's foot and twisted his, maybe it's a Suns Hawks final. The kid is just, I love that he's fearless. He's 22. He, I love his gamesmanship as far as like foul hunting, backing up into defenders, getting the contact and shooting. People in the NBA hate that, but that's like, you're playing within the rules. You're bending them a little bit, but you're playing within the rules. He's such a fearless guy. I mean, I love him and John Collins. John Collins may not be okay. Anyway, let me get it. Okay, Trey Young is, I'm going to say, underrated. He's properly to underrated because his ceiling has just been raised like 30%. And basketball Twitter can now ask itself, was it really that bad of a deal trading Luke? No, I shouldn't even say that, because Luka's a superstar. Luka's a superstar. And Trey Young is a rising star. But that 2018 draft class looks amazing.
Ridiculous.
Luka,
it's absolutely ridiculous.
Trey, DeAndre Ayton. Was Mikal Bridges? He went to Villanova. Was he 17
Miles
or
and
18? I'm missing like 7 dudes, but that's a very a phenomenal draft class, 2018. Yeah. I'm so sorry that was so long. I'm so sorry, fellas.
And that is okay. We like that. Sometimes you know what we like to say. You got caught in a trap, 2-3 zone trap at the top. But we're gonna continue. we are going to continue. I would love to ask you, growing up in Toronto, talk to us about your upbringing. Did you grow up in a sports family? What got you into sports? Stuff like that.
Okay, so I did not grow up in a sports family. My dad liked NFL football, and my best friend Ari, his dad loved baseball. So and my dad's from Jamaica, so like American football wasn't big in Jamaica, like soccer is big in Jamaica. But growing up in Toronto, we didn't really have that much exposure to soccer because I don't even remember if the MLS was around in the 80s. And I don't know how much Europe, like Premiership, we got on television in 1988 or 1991. I don't really remember it. So baseball, when the Toronto Blue Jays went to the ALCS in 1985, and then, the Skydome opens in 1989, and then we get the All-Star game in 91, and then we have our back-to-backs in 92, 93. That's what I really loved baseball at that time. And I started collecting baseball cards, which helped to fuel my sports fandom. We lived at Jane and Finch, and I lived at Jane and Finch from like 5 to 10, and we used to play a game called Salad, which is a very violent game. We would take a tennis ball or a crushed pop can, and it was kind of like a soccer light game. And Salad is basically, if you kick a tennis ball or the object through someone else's legs, they have to run to like home base, which was generally a light pole or like a pole on like a soccer goalpost. But on the way to the person going to home base, you, as the other people playing the game, get to kick them. And we used to just kick the out of each other. And these are like, we're like 8 and 10. Like, we're just like, and it was just, maybe it was a way for us to get our aggression out. And also, while you're playing the game, if you said any word that started with the letter S, and we would try to trick each other to get to say Sprite or sun or, whatever, the word 7, we just kicked the crap out of each other. So I don't know where I was going. The Blue Jays helped me get into sports through my friend's dad, because he would take us to baseball games at Exhibition Place and then the Skydome. And then, truthfully, where I got really into sports was EA, like Electronic Arts, was playing video games, was playing Madden on I was going to say PlayStation, this is how much older I am than you, the Sega Genesis and Super Nintendo. So I was playing Madden, FIFA, NHL, NBA Live, NCAA, March Madness, and I think those were the 5 titles that we played. We just get new titles every year that they came out, mostly Madden. And then, and that's how I developed it. That's how I really developed a love for the game, collecting cards and, basketball cards and baseball cards and hockey cards. So it wasn't as much watching sports on television until I was a little bit older, like in high school. Yeah. But it was just like those other elements, video games with my friends and collecting cards, that really fostered a love for sports.
Okay, so it's safe to say that baseball was that sport for you wanted to play.
Yeah, it was the first one. Baseball was the first one. Yeah.
That makes sense. But, obviously these last 17 months have been extremely difficult for basketball heads, especially Canadian basketball heads and their youth in general. First, you have the death of Kobe, then the pandemic comes around, then we get a taste of freedom, then we go back into 2 more lockdowns. How have you been during these times?
I've been able to maintain. I get outside. I try to go for jogs just for like the physical benefits and the mental benefits. Go for long walks, listen to podcasts and stuff. I really, I am grateful for sports. Like, I am grateful for that escape that we have from our regular lives. And even more so now because sports was taken away from us. And it's like we didn't really respect it. We just like, oh, it's there. There's a game on at 7:05. There's a game on at 7:05 basically every day of the calendar. But then once it was taken away from us, I was like, ooh, man, we were really entitled. And we've seen some entitlement of sports fans. Once fans in America, I'm saying specifically America, were allowed back in the buildings, because like someone spit on Trey Young at Madison Square Garden, someone threw a beer at Kyrie Irving in Boston, someone dumped popcorn on Russell Westbrook's head in Philadelphia. Like, you would never do that to those humans in the real world, because the consequence is you're getting your face stomped into a curb. And then that video is going to play in a loop on the internet forever. Like you would never test those dudes in real life, but because you're an entitled fan, you feel like you can treat them a certain way. And that just, I wish there were more consequences for those types that feel like they could just blatantly disrespect another grown man because because you know that they can't touch you or they can't harm you because the consequences for them are like 10,000x than it would be for you. I think I was in more group chats than I've ever been in my life, whether on Instagram or WhatsApp, and sharing memes, sharing stories. I was reading The Athletic a lot. I really dove into podcasts. So I would try to maintain some semblance of normalcy. And like everybody, it was just like trying to get through it. So that's how I did. And it wasn't bad for me. Thankfully wasn't someone that really had like a lot of anxiety or felt like the world was closing in on me or I had no outlets because I just went outside. And because I'm a little bit older, my generation we kind of try to figure things out on our own. And that's what I did for moments where I was like, I don't really know what to do. And I would just start by like, all right, just go get a run in and then just clear your mind and then, attack the rest of your day.
I really want to touch upon something that you just talked about. You talked about, fan interaction within the stadium, whether it's Kyrie Irving, Russell Westbrook, or Trey Young, whatever it was. The last time I think we had something like that was in 2003 or maybe 2000, a little earlier than that, when in Malice at the Palace between Detroit and Indiana, and we all saw how that resulted there. Do you think that fans are getting a little too careless with everything going on right now? And do you think that the league needs to step in now to really either do more so to prevent another Malice at the Palace, or what is your perspective on what could happen?
This would be a game changer if the teams released the name of the person who did it, because that person would incur a lifetime of shame, and that I think would be that would dissuade a lot of people from acting out of character or acting like a complete jerk, because once your name is like published, like you threw, a full beer at a player and hit them in the eye or the head or something like that, like you're never going to live that shame down. So once names start getting released, I don't think you're going to see any kind of, because that punishment, that penalty will last for years and maybe forever. Yeah. I think forever. And then people will just like, oh, there's that douche that threw a beer at Vladimir Guerrero, like Vladdy Jr. in the outfield, and so that would be a great deterrent for me in my eyes. And I think that's worthy. Like if you're going to be that much of a dickhead, then you deserve that consequence, which is public shame for a very long time.
And that's kind of what happened with a part owner of the Golden State Warriors in the finals with Kyle Lowry. They said his name. He pushed Kyle Lowry and he said his name, and now he's no longer owner or whatever he was. And
he had to sell his stake in the team. Yeah, that's right.
Exactly, that's right. So I agree with that. I like that one. I want to get back on script for a second now, but we coach an AU program, as we talked earlier, called RWI Basketball, and I particularly coach the grade 12s. I recently had a conversation with a couple of them who mentioned to me that they were unsure if they want to go to school next year because they felt like their careers are non-essential. What's some advice that you'd give these kids?
Well, school isn't just to foster your intelligence or to lean into academia. It's absolutely for that if you want to, pursue engineering or technology or finance or science or math or what have you. But just the people that you meet at school can be people that you might have as lifelong friends for forever. And the people that you congregate with, that you commiserate with, you never know that you might set up a business with them down the road, or you might they might change your life. And also the great thing about school is the reputation of the school will carry you through in life. So people don't ever ask you what school you started at. They ask you what school you graduated from.
Yep.
And based on that school's reputation, it can open a lot of doors for you that you don't even know that are closed or have the potential to open for you. You could be at a charity event and be rubbing shoulders with some the CFO of CIBC or TD Bank or something like that. And, that person went to George Brown too. And you'd be like, I'm at George Brown right now. And then like, that's almost like a step closer to that person because you have that shared experience of going to that school. So like there are unknowable things that school can benefit you in the future outside of just academia and learning. There's a bunch of social things. There's a bunch of dots that can be connected down the road, which will help you in your life and your growth. So that's, I know it's a long-winded answer, but that's what I would say to those young kids that you teach, you coach, and you mentor.
Hopefully one day we'll be able to get you in the gym so you could talk to them personally and directly. But as I mentioned earlier, Kobe's death was tragic and it started the year off for the pandemic in 2020. You're someone, as Sid Cicero said, and I quote, "You had unlimited access to Kobe Bryant," which obviously showed how much he respected you. When Kobe passed, how did you react and where were you when you heard the news?
I was devastated, just devastated. I absolutely shed some tears. I was in disbelief for that whole day. I just kept refreshing TMZ because if a story ends up in TMZ, 99% of the time it's true because I don't know how they operate, whether they're giving money for tips or whatever, but once TMZ broke Michael Jackson's death in 2009, and then like other media outlets had to credit TMZ, like they got it first. It's like, whoa, all right, TMZ, I respect it. So I was in my kitchen. I got a phone call from one of my former producers at Sportsnet, a guy named Brendan Lynch. And he's like, "Have you heard?" I'm like, "No." He goes, "Check your phone or check TMZ." And I'm like, "Okay." And then I hung up and then I checked it. So, I miss him. I was just looking at Twitter the other day. Kobe had tweeted, somebody had retweeted a tweet from Kobe back in 2019 about Giannis. And it was like, chase greatness or not be legendary, because that's what he wrote on Devin Booker, or that's what he wrote on a sneaker to Devin Booker, but it was something about greatness or next up is championship. After Giannis won his first MVP, Kobe tweeted that. So then I just, I saw the tweet and then Kobe's like name showed up on the sidebar of my Twitter feed because I was doing it on my laptop. And it just Kobe Bryant like follows you like on Twitter. And it just like made me think about about Kobe and what he meant to my career, which was he elevated my career more than anybody. And I wouldn't say I definitely did not have unlimited access to Kobe because we've never gone to eat at Nobu or TK Burger or In-N-Out Burger. Like I would pick my spots when I would go to LA to have conversations with him. And I was very respectful of his time. And I just didn't want to hear no's all the time. Like, "Hey, can I come to meet?" So there was one pitch that I did, and I sent an email to the communications director of the LA Lakers. Her name is Allison Bogley. I was like, "Allison, would it be possible for when the Lakers are in Charlotte, that we can organize a dinner with Michael and Kobe, and then we could record the dinner?" And she just responded in all caps, "Absolutely not." So just to tell you, like, hey, I got to shoot my shot, but that got blocked. I was like, I don't know if you saw this video of like DeMarcus Cousins, Boogie Cousins on like a random blacktop, some schoolyard playground, and just swatting the hell out of it. Like, I mean, it's been done before in the movies. It was that. I got that.
Damn.
From Allison Bogley. So Kobe was very generous with his time, and he did give me, for some reason, he chose me as the guy that he was going to have fun with, because we never saw him have fun. We saw him like jump over a car in like a TNT commercial. We saw him do like the Kobe system where Kanye is sitting in the audience and Richard Branson. I mean, but it wasn't like, we didn't really hear Kobe laugh. or we didn't really see him smile that much in his commercials. They were very much about his performance. There was the Nike commercial in black and white where he's just working out. It's grainy. It was shot on like 16 millimeter film. We just know him as the dude biting his jersey who was screaming, and he's like almost ripping off his jersey to show his heart like he's Superman. He's the dude, obviously, who dropped 62 against Dallas in 3 quarters, dropped 81 against us in a game in January against the Raps. So for him to show the other side was huge. And he just decided that he's like, all right, this chubby guy, this weirdo from Canada is the guy that I'm going to let give me pajamas. I'm going to let him bring me pillows and CDs and a limousine. And the time that I asked him if we could go on a helicopter ride, he said yes. He said we're just eating some food after an event. And he's like, okay, we can take my helicopter. And I've never asked him specifically like, hey, why did you choose me? But I'm so happy that he did.
Fair enough. I mean, you touched up on it as well. You know, you said commercials. You know, him scoring 81 against Toronto. There's one commercial that he had in particular with Jalen Rose, and I forgot exactly how it went, but he said something like 81 or something like that, and Jalen Rose looked at him, and they looked back at each other, and they had that awkward interaction with each other. But you being from Toronto, you being born and raised in Toronto, I'm assuming you're a Raptors fan. I'm assuming you enjoy the Raptors.
Yes.
But obviously you're a Kobe guy, and you really enjoy Kobe. So when he scored 81 against Toronto, what were you feeling in that moment? Because that must have been a torn moment for you.
I was astonished. In the second half, he had 55, and he was being guarded by Jalen and being guarded by Mo Pete. That interaction with Jalen was, I think it was on a show called Jalen versus Everybody. And in that scene, they're at a restaurant, and Jalen walks in, and Kobe's sitting down or whatever. It was a great moment. And Jalen is so great because people remind him all the time that Kobe dropped 81, and Jalen just accepts it. Yeah. He's like, well, that's part of my truth, or that's my truth, so I'm just going to lean into it. But Mo Pete also got some of that work. I think Joey Graham got some of that work, and Jose Calderon got some of that work. So it wasn't just Jalen. And Sam Mitchell did not call for a double team for whatever reason. But anyway, how did I feel? Yeah, I was astonished. I just had to respect it. Like, yeah, our team was up huge, and we gave away a huge lead, and we lost the game. But you just had to respect the G. And Kobe that year, I think he averaged 35. He didn't win MVP. I believe it was Nash's second MVP that year, and then they met in the first round. And they lost. Phoenix, I think, won in 7 games. There was that great game winner where Kobe drives, and it was like an off balance, like floater, almost like a layup floater, to like extend the series. But yeah, astonishment is the one word that I would say. That's how I reacted to that game.
Now we got to know. We're all curious. What got you into sportscasting in the first place?
I was at Ryerson, and I was taking radio and television arts, and I wanted to get into film. And when I was in high school, I was like, it was suggested by a guidance counselor. He's like, oh, you should look into the TV program at Ryerson. I didn't know that it had this great reputation as a school for broadcasting. So I applied, and you got to write an essay. You have to like submit some other materials, and then you got to go do a test and show how creative you are and that sort of thing. So I got in. So once I was there in my second year, I was like, I should probably get an internship. And a few days later, there was a guy at school his name is Steph Gagnon. He was in his third year. I was in my second year. Going back to like, you don't know who you're going to meet at school, who can like change your life down the road. So I knew this guy, and he's like, hey, Headline Sports, which is the Score, which is what the Score was called at the time. They're looking for interns. Give me your resume. So the next day, myself and my friend Adnan Verk, who was a long-time host at ESPN. He now works for the MLB network, and he does a bunch of other projects. He was recently a host on the WWE network. So we were like 19 or 20 years old, give him our resumes. A week later, we had internships. So we were learning about the television industry or learning about sports. And then I really got into sports, because once you're like at a sports channel, your whole world is sports. It's stats. It's like trends. You're memorizing batting averages, hitting, home run titles. I started in the fall of 98. Or was it the summer of 98 as an intern? And that was the year that Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa were chasing the home run crown. And baseball was back. It was the most exciting year in baseball in many, many years. These guys are Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa are on the cover of Sports Illustrated, just wearing togas. The home run chase was the most. There would be breaking news. Like there'd be ESPN or CNN or other networks would interrupt their regularly scheduled programming to break in to show at bats from either Sosa or McGwire because they were, chasing Roger Maris's home run record. So that's how I got in. And the reason I got an internship at the Score is because I went to Ryerson, because half of the people at the Score were Ryerson grads, and the other half were grads from this random college in Ottawa called Algonquin. So like most of our editors came from Algonquin College, and then just a bunch of other people, producers and people at the network, went to Ryerson. So I didn't know this in high school, and I didn't know that just by me being a student at Ryerson would open a door for me to get into the television industry down the road. So, but it worked out for me.
Networking is extremely important. That's
an
extreme example. Now we're about to take you down memory lane.
Let's go.
Talk to us about Cabbie on the Street. How did that show come about? And other than Kobe, can you give us another memorable moment on that show?
Yeah. So I started it in 2001, in the summer of 2001, just as a man on the street segment. At the time, there was a show on Rogers called The Buzz, and Darren Jones and Mr. Mo, who were both comedians, would just go around the street and just interview people. Sometimes they would make fun of people. And I chose a different approach. I was a big fan of Conan O'Brien and his late night show. And Conan O'Brien is really self-deprecating. And I thought it's just easier to make fun of yourself than make fun of somebody else, because I think it's more endearing to the audience. So that was sort of my tone. So I was going out asking sports questions. And Lisa Bowes and Steve Coolius, who were anchors at the Score, they suggested it to me as a segment for their weekend show. They were doing the weekend highlights. I was like, let me think about it. And then I met my cameraman, my man B. His name is Brian Roy. He had just graduated from York University, and he bought himself a camcorder, a Canon XL1, which predates those DSLRs by about 15 years. So we went out. I had a handy cam. He had the XL1, and we would go do random sports segments. I would just come up with it, have a little clipboard. I would go to a lot of colleges and universities because the people were my own age, and I just felt more comfortable.
Smart.
But I'd also get a lot of rejection, because when you just approach someone and ask them for their time, it's like you're a total stranger, they're a total stranger. And like the Score wasn't that popular of a channel. So people were like, they weren't really sure what I was doing, but I was like, I'm just asking like sports questions. And then I would just get into it. I would ask about figure skating or hockey or is NASCAR a sport, or is horse racing a sport? And I would get varying opinions, and then I would just make fun of myself. So it started to gain some steam. And the first like really big one was Vince Carter used to have a charity game in Toronto.
I went to the first one, by the way. Sorry to cut you off. I went to the first one with Brad Fay.
With Brad Fay?
That's my uncle.
Oh, wow. So it was, full house at the Air Canada Center. It was right around Caravana time. And he invited a bunch of his friends, and I got to do a segment there. And Mo Pete and Jerome Williams and Vince really embraced me. And I was like, wow, this feels awesome. It's like my first time interviewing like professional athletes, and they were dialed into it. And then it continued. And then after I left the Score, I went to SportsCenter, and I worked on a baseball show and a basketball show. Baseball show was called J Zone. Basketball show was called NBA XL. And that's where I really got to hone my craft and just deal specifically with athletes. So I went from streeters, bugging people at Yonge and Dundas, or I went up to my old neighborhood in Jane and Finch. I used to live at 5 Needle Throwaway, and I was just playing basketball against random people, losing, just myself and my man D, losing, in games of 2-on-2. We're trying to do a little pick and roll. Didn't work so well. Neither of us had jump shots. So went from that to like, I got to interview like Kevin Garnett at the All-Star game. And then Kevin Garnett was talking about like making pancakes or having his chef make us like fajitas. And I was like, this is amazing. Because I was never asking like sports questions. I was asking questions about like the culture and about them specifically. So
Smart.
people, it allowed them to trust me a little bit more because I wasn't doing like gotcha journalism. I wasn't like trying to ask something controversial. I was just asking about, movies and sneakers and, throwback jerseys and, fun stuff. So that definitely worked to my benefit. So that's how it started, man. So, okay. So Vince Carter's game was a big one for me. Cabbie on the Street hockey, which my man D gave me that idea. That was the first time he came on as a producer. He just said, I have a couple of ideas for you. So I was like, I got my own ideas. But then finally I listened to him and he's like, Cabbie on the Street hockey. I'm like, that's a really good idea. So one random like February, we went out and we went to like busy intersections in Toronto. So we went to like Young and Bloor and John and King, or King and John. We went to play in front of like the Much Music building. With Queen and John. And then we would just wait for the red lights. And then we played in front of Maple Leaf Gardens. And then we just played up to one. D was the goalie. I was out there just wearing the first one. I was wearing a Seattle Supersonics hockey jersey. Like it was the most bootleg hockey jersey. Cause why is there a Seattle Supersonics? Why is there a basketball team hockey jersey? But there was, and I wore it. And I remember I played Cardinal in front of the Royal Ontario Museum. And Cardi is like such a great dude. Cardinal Official. I got to give him so much love. And that's a dude, you were talking earlier, Stephen, about like how we dealt during the pandemic. Cardi is such a great dude. He would just send you either every day or every few days just a motivational message, like specifically to you. Like, and I'm, he probably did this to a bunch of his friends, but I appreciated that gesture so much. It like just revealed so much of his character. He's such a great dude. Anyway, so Cardi and I played street hockey and I think I won. And I would always like D would always have like a big 5-hole. So I just knew there's this one particular move that I would use from like EA, like NHL 94, just like a deke and through the legs. So that's how I would win a lot of the games. So those are the two big ones from the Cabbie on the Street era. And then once I got to interact with athletes, then it was a game changer for me.
To conclude the show, we're coming down to the near end of our show. We got some quick hitters for you though, my man. We want to know. We want to know first quick hitter. Does Masai stay in Toronto?
That's a great question.
That's a fantastic question.
We got him back. We got him back at the 2-3.
I hope so. He is deified in Toronto. He's one of the most brilliant minds in basketball, and I would say sports as an executive, as someone who runs a front office. I hope so. I hope they bring the bag because Masai, he took a big swing in 2019 and it worked out for us. And he always fleeces other teams in trades because he's so smart. So I hope so. I don't have any other information. I messaged him the other day just saying what's up, and he just hit me back. He's like, I hope you're having a great summer. It was real casual, but I just had to let him know that he was on my mind. But I don't ever dive into those kind of conversations with Masai because I just haven't earned that privilege to be on that level with him. And I'm not I'm not close enough with him to be like, so like, what are we doing, guy? Like, are we coming back in 2022? Like, what's up with the extension?
Steven, let me ask the second one here real quick. We have the 4th pick. Last time we had the 4th pick was with Chris Bosh.
And before that, Vince. I guess we drafted Antoine Jamison, and we made the trade for Vince. Jalen Suggs is the early leader, right? As the kid from Gonzaga.
Yeah.
You don't like Jalen Green?
Oh, Jalen Green, Jalen Suggs.
No, Jalen Suggs from Gonzaga.
Jalen Suggs. Well, Jalen Green is nice too. Aren't there like 3 kids from G League Ignite that are?
They're top 10 picks, yeah.
Jonathan, what's the kid's like? Kuminga? No.
Kuminga, yeah.
Kuminga, he's legit. I think Jalen Green plays on that team too, right? And so does, I don't know, because I think Detroit, there are rumors that they're open to trading the pick and trading Cade Cunningham to a team that, could use a potential generational talent. So I don't know, man. I'm still in NBA Finals mode, so I haven't done enough research to give you an informed opinion on who we should draft yet. So I'm gonna reserve comment because I don't want to be out here saying something stupid and then we draft. we find some kid in Lithuania, Slovenia. We find like, or some kid from like the DRC who's like this incredible talent that nobody has on their radar. I guess the one mistake that Masai was we drafted Bruno Caboclo. He got so limited, so few minutes that we never even really heard his name on the broadcast. Yeah. And when we drafted him, he was 2 years away from being 2 years away.
2 years away.
But he poor guy, never really had much of a career in the NBA. I think he went to Sacramento after us.
Then went to Memphis. Yeah, he played pretty well in Memphis last year. But I got to ask you, though, we got 2 more quick hitters for you, and then we're going to conclude the show. But I want to ask you, you plus 4 Canadian broadcasters / journalists are going to Rucker Park to play a pickup game. Who are you picking to rock with you?
We are getting dusted, homie. We are getting absolutely smashed.
At least you put it out there.
Oh my gosh. Because I'm not going to contribute at all. I'm going to play hard defense like I'm Ron Artest. And we talk about Rucker Park like a guy who's from Queens. I'm just going to play body-to-body defense and just get destroyed. I'm going to get so many elbows. Like, I won't have any teeth left. I'm getting elbows in the grill. So I would take Sherman Hamilton, Paul Jones. I would take 4 others. Okay. And like, we're all older dudes now. It's not like we're 24. Like, we're all in our 40s. And I'm trying to think of some like American broadcasters, but they're all like, oh, like who's doing? So I would take Richard Jefferson if he would accept the invitation. And then who else just recently ended? Oh, I would take Vince. If Vince, I would take Vince. Vince and RJ should shoot enough 3-pointers. Paul Jones can run the point. Sherman would be out there on the wing, and then I don't know what function. I would just be trying to set very hard screens and trying to take a lot of charges.
I got one last question for you, and we're going to conclude the show. Who's someone that you like to see on Soccer Exposure? But here's the kicker, though. You got to help us get them on. We took that from a podcast that you mentioned earlier today.
I'm trying to think of who would tell some great stories. Like Paul Jones that dude can talk for days. I mean, he's got great stories.
We've had Sherman, we've had Leo, we've had Jack, we've had Brad, and that's all we've had.
That's awesome.
And now we've had
hold on, it's coming to me.
All right.
Jalen Rose would be amazing.
Jalen Rose would be amazing.
Jalen Rose
would be very nice to have him. We won't bring up the 81-point game. I promise you that. We won't bring it. We won't bring up. We won't bring up the 81
every day.
But like I said, you got to help us with your answers. So we definitely hope that you're gonna help us get him on in whatever way possible, whatever capacity you can. And we'll definitely do the first part to reach out to him. But you got to help us with that one too. So
I'll try. You got it. I'll try my best.
Hey, Cabbie, where can we find you on social media?
On Twitter, @Cabbie, on Instagram, @TheRealCabbie, and that's where you'll see and experience all my adventures.
Cabbie, we want to thank you so much for your time today, man. Honestly, like I said earlier today before we started recording, you are a Canadian legend. A lot of kids know who you are. A lot of people know who you are. You're the innovator. You're the anchor of funny comedy within sports. And honestly, man, like you've done a lot of good things and interviewed a lot of good people, and just your calm and cool collective personality is really something that people like to gravitate towards. So thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciate you taking some time to talk to us today. And I couldn't have been more honored to have you on the show today.
You fellas are very kind. Thank you for the invitation. I really I enjoyed this walk down memory lane, and I hope that you and your listeners enjoyed it as well.